In 2090, Earth went dark. Not from war, but from judgment. They didn't tell us what the test was. They only said, survive 100 hours, or be forgotten forever. The transmission arrived at exactly midnight UTC. It didn't come through satellites or fiber lines. It didn't interrupt broadcasts or hack digital systems. It simply appeared, etched across the skies in every language known to Earth, projected into the minds of every living human, a whisper thunderous enough to make nations fall silent. Homo sapiens, you have advanced beyond the threshold. Final assessment initiated. You have 100 hours. No further explanation. No visible sender. Just that the skies flickered once, then went black. Satellites failed. Power grids surged and fell. Every global communication system collapsed in a synchronized pulse like a planet-wide heart attack. Within minutes, the entire Earth was silent and blind. The first hour passed in chaos. Some thought it was war. Others thought it was God. The second hour, survival instincts kicked in. By the third, governments no longer mattered. By the fourth, humanity remembered what it was like to be hunted. Colonel Yara Ellison stood atop the ruins of what had been New Zurich Command. Wind tore at her scorched uniform. Ash still drifted from the atmosphere, like the sky was trying to erase itself. She watched the horizon. No drones. No satellites. No enemy. Just stillness. That was worse. She tapped her neural chip. Nothing. Dead. Like everything else. Colonel, came a strained voice behind her. Yara turned to see Lieutenant Mbeki, bleeding from the shoulder, his face drawn and pale. He was holding something in both hands. A small girl, maybe 8 years old. Her eyes were wide but dry, her gaze locked on the same sky. Yara lowered herself slowly. Name. She doesn't speak. Found her alone in the lower sectors. No ID. Yara nodded and brushed dirt from the child's cheek. The girl didn't flinch. Just stared. The air shimmered again. Another projection painted itself into the sky, this time in blood red. Phase 1, isolation. Observation ongoing. The words hovered for exactly 60 seconds before vanishing. Yara stood. This isn't an attack, she said quietly. It's an experiment. Across the Pacific, inside what remained of a Japanese subterranean facility, Dr. Kenji Mori was running simulations on salvage batteries. No power, no data, but he had something better, paper. He'd been drawing schematics by hand for the past 3 hours, trying to map what he called the behavioral grid, a theory he developed a decade ago about alien observation patterns. Now, as silence reigned above, he began to think he hadn't been paranoid after all. Sensei, whispered a student, Aiko, do you believe it's a test? Kenji nodded, but not for knowledge, for character. Aiko frowned. Character? He pointed upward. Survival alone isn't the test. It's how we survive. What choices we make when the lights go out. In Antarctica, Commander Reyes of the Ice Vault Initiative initiated lockdown on Sub-Zero Facility Omega. The underground biome had enough resources for 300 people. For 2 years, there were over 600 already crowding the entry tunnels, screaming for air. She gave the order. Seal it. No exceptions. Her junior officers hesitated, but they obeyed. As the last blast door hissed shut, she stared at the camera feed. Mothers holding infants, elders on their knees, scientists clutching credentials like they still mattered. Reyes swallowed hard. Phase 1 is to see if we abandon empathy, she muttered. They want to know if humanity will cannibalize itself. Someone behind her whispered. Then we're already failing. Somewhere in orbit, unseen and silent, the observers watched. They had no ships, no forms. They were the instrument of an ancient protocol designed by civilizations long dead. A machine built to assess worthiness on a galactic scale, not through tests of intelligence, but morality, instinct, collective decision. They had studied thousands of species. Most failed before the second phase. By hour 16, Earth's death toll had crossed 1 million, not from weapons, but from collapse. Hospitals had no power. Cities with no communication erupted into violence. Planes fell from the sky. Nuclear facilities went quiet, but unstable. And still, no enemy revealed itself. No instructions. No demands. Just a countdown. 84 hours remaining. In what had once been the New York Metro Command Center, Captain Rima Alvarez activated an old ham radio from the Cold War era. Miraculously, it hummed to life. She tried 3 frequencies, then a 4th, static, then voice. This is Port Sierra, broadcasting from coastal. 68 hours remaining. The pillar floated over the Amazon, immovable, silent, humming with unseen purpose. It didn't touch the ground, didn't emit heat, yet every sensor near it failed, every animal fled, and every human who approached it either collapsed or saw something they could not explain. In Greenland, 3 scientists in cold gear tried to triangulate the signal. One saw a burning earth. One saw a mirror of herself, old and weeping. The third went catatonic after whispering, "They were here before us, watching, always watching." It wasn't just a test. It was judgment based on data older than humanity's first fire. Yara Ellison didn't sleep. She sat beside the girl, who still didn't speak unless spoken to. Becky, half bandaged now, had rigged an old projector. He showed the girl a crude map of Earth, drawn by candlelight. "Do you know where home is?" he asked. The girl simply touched Antarctica. He frowned. "There's nothing left down there." She looked up, eyes far too calm. "That's where it ends." Yara leaned closer. "How do you know that?" The girl's response was quiet. "They showed me." At hour 40, the weather systems collapsed. Tornadoes formed over deserts. Snow fell in the Congo. Mumbai boiled. Alaska burned. All across Earth, climate models inverted violently. But it wasn't natural chaos. It was design. No epicenter. No storm path. Just pure artificial atmospheric warfare against human infrastructure. In under 6 hours, every major agricultural center was compromised. That was the second signal. Not just testing endurance, testing logistics, testing whether humans would hoard or share. Some did. In the remains of Berlin, a coalition of ex-soldiers and refugees opened the sealed military granaries to feed thousands. In Nairobi, a child hacked a farming drone to harvest ruined rice fields, 1 plate at a time. In rural Canada, strangers left wood, water, and food on road signs without ever meeting the ones who'd take them. But others did not. In Nevada, a warlord named Priest broadcast live from a makeshift throne of car batteries and welded steel. Armed with salvage drones and 200 desperate men, he declared himself commander of the free earth. He offered trade, then shot those who accepted it. His message? Only the strong survive. For a moment, the skies pulsed again. Recorded. Dr. Kenji Mori, still alive and buried in the mountains of northern Japan, had figured out the observers weren't random. They weren't testing government systems or military dominance or GDP. They were scanning the moral architecture of the species. Every act, cruelty or kindness, logged, categorized, weighted. The test wasn't about winning. It was about revealing. Hour 50. The girl in Yara's care finally spoke without prompting. "They're almost done." Yara knelt beside her. "Who are they?" The girl looked toward the east, where the pillars still floated. "Not gods. Not alive. Just mirrors." Yara felt a chill. "You're not like the rest of us, are you?" The girl tilted her head. "I'm human, but they tuned me. Years ago, before I was born, I was seeded into the population to record what they couldn't see." Becky choked. "You're one of their instruments?" She nodded. "But I chose Earth." The countdown appeared again. Not in the sky. In their minds. 48 hours remaining. It pulsed behind their eyes like a metronome. Every human on Earth saw it, felt it, heard the ticking. And that's when the real fear began. Because it wasn't just a clock anymore. It was a judgment. In the Arctic Ocean, an ancient submarine surfaced, one long thought lost. On board were survivors from a secret world ruler contingency plan. Politicians, scientists, billionaires, all waiting out the storm beneath the ice. They called for rescue. But Earth wasn't listening anymore. Instead, they received a message beamed into their command deck. Hidden choices do not negate consequence. The sub was crushed 5 minutes later, not by attack, but by pressure from below, the sea itself boiling them in silence. Kenji scrawled another formula onto the ice wall of his lab. "It's not a test of survival," he muttered. "It's a test of soul aggregation." Aiko stared. "So," he tapped the wall. "Every action taken creates signal resonance. The machines are weighing our collective pattern against thresholds left behind by civilizations before us. If our waveform matches corruption, we are deleted." She whispered, "Like a corrupted file?" He nodded grimly. "Exactly." Meanwhile, Yara decided to move. Not north, not west, south, toward Antarctica. Something in her knew the girl wasn't wrong. If the test ends anywhere, it ends there. She rallied her remaining troops. Just 30 left. The rest had either defected or died in storms. "Why south?" Becky asked. "Because it's the one place they haven't touched." Hour 58. Global temperature dropped 10 degrees Celsius. Plants withered. Solar panels froze. Wind turbines shattered under pressure shifts. The earth groaned. No tectonic activity, just vibration. All across the planet, machines buried deep in old military bunkers began to sing, not mechanically, but in perfect harmonic resonance, as of awakening. Old AIs, forgotten constructs, weapons too dangerous to use, all humming the same tone. A warning. In New Zealand, an elderly woman walked into a cave lined with crystal, untouched for centuries. The crystals began to glow around her. She smiled, sat down, and whispered, "I've been waiting for this." She died peacefully. Above her cave, the sky shimmered. Kindness observed. Humanity began to change, not through evolution, but clarity. All the masks fell. There was no profit, no politics, no future to invest in, just decisions. Here, now. In Brazil, 3 rival gangs declared ceasefire to build a water pipeline. In Bangladesh, children formed patrol lines to rescue elders from flood zones. In Paris, a man once convicted for arson led survivors through collapsed tunnels with nothing but memory and song. In Lagos, a blind preacher walked into a crowd screaming for salvation and simply said, "Look within, not up." People listened, but not all. In the Midwest, a settlement refused entry to anyone. Wade. Yara's convoy reached the southern sea line. She stared at the frozen waves. "There's no ship," someone said. The girl walked ahead. She raised her hand, and the ocean parted, not dramatically, just enough to show a narrow ice bridge leading toward a black structure half buried in the glacier. Yara turned to her team. "We're going in." Inside, the air was warm, not from heat, but from resonance. Every step closer to the structure, Yara felt her thoughts drift, not just memories, choices. She remembered the day she sacrificed 20 soldiers to save 1,000, the day she refused to. Just mirrors, thousands of mirrors, showing versions of herself. In one, she screamed. In another, she bled. In a third, she smiled through fire. And in the center, an empty reflection. Waiting. The girl stepped in front of it. "I'm done recording," she whispered. She turned to Yara. Now Earth must speak for itself. 40 hours remaining. The mirrors shattered, not violently, just faded into dust. And then the sky lit with one final message. Final phase response. No one knew what it meant. No one knew what would come next. But somewhere in the dust of the Antarctic structure, the countdown stopped. For them. 40 hours remaining, but not everywhere. In Antarctica, where the girl triggered the ancient mirror structure, Yara's team stood in stunned silence. For them, the countdown vanished. No clock ticking in their heads. No pressure behind their eyes. The girl simply looked up and whispered, "They heard us." Then she collapsed. Becky caught her, trembling. Her skin was warm. Too warm. Yara knelt and checked her pulse, racing, unstable but alive. Her eyes moved rapidly behind closed lids. "She's not asleep," Yara murmured. "She's still communicating." With what? The structure behind them crumbled into frost. Nothing remained. No metal, no stone. It had never been built. It had grown. Meanwhile, across the world, the countdown surged forward. Phase 3. Response. The skies pulsed red and silver, then scattered. Every region received a tailored challenge. In northern Russia, a child screamed as snow turned to blood and memories of ancient wars flooded entire towns. Entire populations collapsed under guilt. In Cairo, every device replayed images of famine and greed. Times the wealthy fed the desert and ignored the dying. Crops withered on the vine. In New York, holograms showed crimes long buried. Leaders smiling as cities burned in silence. But something shifted. This time, humanity didn't look away. In Poland, a woman named Amelia walked into a city square where her grandfather once executed prisoners during a silent purge. She placed a monument, not to him, but to those forgotten. In South Africa, two rival paramilitary groups laid down arms and worked side by side to repair a shattered power line, knowing it wouldn't last, but building it anyway. And in Seoul, a deaf child created a system of vibrations and touch signals so the voiceless could speak again. The machines didn't intervene. They just watched. Every action, every ripple, the signal strengthened. At hour 36, the girl awoke, not screaming, not dazed, calm. She opened her eyes and stared straight into Yara's. "They're giving us a final question," she whispered, "but not in words." Yara frowned. "Then how?" The girl pointed outward. "In consequence." The weather grew worse. Heat waves struck the Arctic. Ice devoured the Sahara. Cities drowned. The sky wept black ash. There was no enemy, just reflection. In a small mountain town in Norway, a dying priest gathered his people and said something no AI, no government, no observer could mimic. "We do not pass this test by proving strength or brilliance. We pass it by showing we can fall and still reach out." That night, his town opened its gates to strangers fleeing floods. They had no food. They shared it anyway. In orbit, the observers pulsed in harmony, not satisfaction, not approval, curiosity. Humanity was not reacting like others had. Other species had either united under false gods or collapsed under fear. Humans fractured, then reformed, over and over, adapting, improvising, choosing without clarity. The machines didn't understand it, so they waited. At hour 30, something massive entered the atmosphere. Not a ship, a scar, a burning line across the sky, hundreds of kilometers long. It didn't strike. It hovered. It was a memory, a recorded event from a planet long gone, one that had failed the same test. Humans watched entire continents vaporize in the red light. They heard a voice, not from above, but within. This was a world that chose fear. Then silence. A new message burned itself into the sky. Earth's decision approaches. Final reflection begins. In Brazil, a young mother walked her 2 children through a collapsed favela. She sang, not because they were safe, but because singing was all she had left. Every person she passed, scars, dirt, rage, stopped and listened, then joined her. Dozens, then hundreds. The melody echoed across hills, through broken buildings, across rivers thick with oil. And something happened. The burning scar flickered and recoiled. Yara stood at the southernmost point on Earth. No orders. No more maps. Only the girl. "She says we have one choice left," Becky said. Yara looked at her. "What is it?" The girl's voice was distant. "Hollow. Do we build or do we beg?" In Australia, a man named Joel found an old transmission dish. Instead of calling for rescue, he opened a frequency to the world. "Stop looking for the ones testing us," he said. "Look at the ones beside you. Look at the ones you can still reach." It became known as the Echo Broadcast. Within 2 hours, people across Earth began repeating it, adding their names, their acts, their small kindnesses. It wasn't a plea. It was a record, a living log of who humans chose to be when all else was stripped away. Hour 24. The final day. The girl, now barely awake, whispered the last phrase. Now they decide. No more storms. No more hallucinations. Just silence and stillness. The earth waited. At hour 20, the moon changed color. Silver lines carved themselves across its surface. Constellations from other worlds. Every failed species. Every past one. Only 14 symbols glowed bright. Hundreds faded gray. One began to flicker. Earth's. Kenji, still alive, eyes sunken but sharp, wrote his final note in charcoal. They are not looking for perfection. They are looking for the choice to improve, even when there is no reward. He placed a note under a rock and walked into the snow to share his last meal with a dying animal. His pulse flatlined an hour later. The snow around him melted in a perfect circle. Above him, a single word shimmered in the air. Seen. In the last hour, people stopped talking. There was nothing left to say. Families held each other. Enemies sat in silence. Children stared at the sky, not in fear, but in wonder. For the first time in centuries, no human reached for a screen or a gun, only each other. The girl stood on the last cliff at the southern pole. Yara beside her. I'm scared, Yara admitted. The girl nodded. So were they. Did they pass? No. Do you think we will? The girl smiled. We already did. The sky tore open, not with fire, but with light, gentle, slow, folding downward like silk. And then, a voice, not a sound, a presence. All across Earth, every human heard the same message. Not perfect, but possible. Not united, but connected. Not ready, but willing. Welcome. Above the planet, where stars once watched in judgment, thousands of symbols glowed. Earth's symbol among them. Alive. Accepted. 0 hours remaining. There was no countdown anymore. No fear. No panic. No transmissions or warnings. Only stillness. Only silence. And then light. It came not as a beam or explosion, but as a presence. A ripple through the air. Through thought. Through choice. Every human, no matter where they were, felt it like a heartbeat not their own. Not victory. Not defeat. Recognition. In orbit, the observers did not celebrate. They did not speak. They simply shifted. For the first time in millennia, the protocol adjusted. A variable introduced into a system designed to be binary. Earth had broken the model, where other species either collapsed into madness or masked their cruelty behind unity. Humans had fractured, failed, fallen, and still reached upward. That wasn't part of the original parameters. But the machine changed its core law that day, because the data was undeniable. Humanity, when stripped of everything, still chose hope. The girl, the witness, stood barefoot on glacial ice, skin glowing faintly under sky that no longer raged. She was no longer just a recorder. She was a bridge. They're leaving, she whispered. Yara stepped beside her. The ones who tested us. The girl nodded. Their work is complete. We're written into the accord now. Yara exhaled. So it's over. The girl's face tilted toward the clouds. No, now begins. Across the world, change did not erupt with parades or new governments. There was no broadcasted declaration, but things shifted. Old power structures didn't survive the blackout. Digital currency collapsed. Borders became irrelevant in the face of global scarcity. And yet, no wars followed. Instead, small collectives formed, not to rule, but to repair. They didn't call themselves nations. They called themselves circles. The circles had no leaders, only volunteers, builders, listeners, walkers, those who simply moved from place to place, helping those who couldn't help themselves. And from these actions, a memory formed. The memory of the final test. What Earth had faced. What humanity had chosen. In what remained of Cairo, on a cracked wall scorched by heat and flood, someone painted a single phrase: "We mattered," and the message spread. At the edges of the solar system, alien ships stirred. Not warships. Scouts. Curiosity craft. Species older than Earth's oldest myths took notice. Not because Earth had screamed loudest, but because Earth had survived with soul intact. A rare thing. A dangerous thing. One such ship entered the Kuiper Belt quietly. It did not approach Earth. Instead, it waited and listened and left a single artifact, an obsidian shard shaped like an eye, before vanishing beyond light again, a message encoded within. First contact requires first comprehension. You are now visible. Yara Ellison stayed in Antarctica. She refused any circle rolls. No rank, no title. She simply watched the ice, listened to the wind, and taught others how to survive with less than nothing. When asked why, she'd answer the same: because we might be tested again. And next time, no one will tell us. Kenji's final notes were found buried under meters of snow, scanned by hand, copied by torchlight. He called it the ethical wave theory, the idea that all intelligent life resonates at a frequency unique to its soul, that civilizations pass not through dominance or intellect, but by choosing decency when no one is watching. The theory spread like wildfire. Some mocked it, most embraced it, because deep down, people remembered those last 100 hours and what they did in them. The girl, whose name was never given, was seen one last time at the edge of a ruined cliff in Chile. She spoke to no one. She simply stared at the stars, then whispered, "You see us now. We're still here. Come and meet us when you're ready." And then she was gone. 50 years passed, then 100. Earth rebuilt, not old blueprints, but new ones. Not towers, gardens, libraries, bridges without tolls, roads that led nowhere but across. And etched into the fabric of the new human ethos was one unwavering truth. Humanity was not perfect, but it had been worthy. And in the darkness between stars, the ones who once judged now watched in silence, not with instruments, but with respect. Because Earth had done what no one expected. Not fought, not surrendered, but reflected and grown. Final log entry. Designation: Planet 3427E. Species: Homo sapiens. Result: observed, endured. Verdict: admitted to accord. Reason: unquantifiable moral recursion detected. Recommendation: monitor. Potential: exceptional.